The galaxy was drowning in silence. Once proud civilizations that had thrived for millennia now found themselves staring down extinction. The Oshal Dominion, a sophisticated and technologically advanced species known for their diplomacy and peaceful governance, had been the first to encounter the Virex blight, a mindless, consuming swarm of biomechanical parasites that swept across systems like fire through dry leaves. The Oshal had believed their shields, diplomacy, and alliances would protect them. They were wrong. It began with the outlying colonies. Communications went dark within days. Patrol fleets sent to investigate never returned. And then came the survivors, ships, drifting in space, filled with catatonic, hollow-eyed Oshal muttering the same phrase over and over. They're not alive. They're not dead. They just take. The Oshal High Council, desperate and cornered, broke the oldest taboo in galactic diplomacy. They sent a system-wide distress signal, a universal cry for help, beyond borders, past grudges over old wars. It carried the unmistakable code used only when a civilization faced absolute annihilation. And yet, the silence persisted. The other galactic powers, proud empires, commercial coalitions, even the spiritual enclaves of the Zelnar, offered condolences, not aid. No one wanted to provoke the Virex. No one wanted to be next. That's when the unthinkable happened. A signal responded. From Earth. Humanity had withdrawn from the galactic stage decades ago after what historians called the Varnak incident, brutal war in which humans had deployed unspeakable weapons to stop an interstellar uprising. Since then, Earth had sealed its borders, closed its embassies, and cut communication with the wider galaxy. So when the transmission came, it shook every council chamber across the stars. Oshal distress confirmed. Assistance en route. Estimated. Arrival, 48 hours. Stand by for Protocol 9 engagement. The Oshal Council was stunned. Relief washed through the capital like rain over parched ground. An emergency broadcast rallied citizens. For the first time in months, hope returned. They prepared docking bays, cleared hospitals, made diplomatic arrangements to welcome humanity's medical teams and tactical advisors. Surely Earth, the species that had once reshaped entire ecosystems to end a war, would bring overwhelming force and brilliant minds. When the human vessel finally emerged from hyperspace, it was underwhelming. One ship, no fleet, no carriers, no orbital defense grid. The ship was sleek, obsidian black, unmarked. It didn't match any known human design. Silent, ominous. It didn't even request landing clearance. It simply descended, piercing the atmosphere like a falling star and hovering above Oshal Prime's central command tower. Then came the broadcast on all frequencies in every language the humans had ever encountered. Assistance received. Protocol 9 authorized. Stand clear. That was it. No further explanation. No ambassadors. No requests. Just that single line, cold and mechanical. As the Oshal leadership scrambled to understand what Protocol 9 meant, the ship opened. A ramp extended. The air chilled. And a single figure emerged. Tall, armored in matte black plating, faceless beneath a sealed helmet. No insignia, no rank. The being didn't speak. It just began walking, toward the war zone, toward the Virex. Alone. The Oshal didn't realize it yet, but they hadn't summoned a savior. They had summoned something else entirely. Something humanity had locked away for good reason. The Oshal expected a team. At minimum, a squad. Medics, advisors, engineers. Anything that resembled coordinated aid. Instead, they received one figure, silent, unmarked, and walking with terrifying purpose. The being who stepped from the human vessel introduced himself to no one. He ignored the honorary delegation waiting on the tarmac, the frantic Oshal officers trying to greet him, and the camera drones capturing every step. His gait was precise. His eyes, if he had any, were hidden behind the black helmet of his armor, which hummed faintly with internal energy. At the landing pad's edge, he stopped and turned toward the Oshal Prime commander who had raced to intercept him. Who? Who are you? The commander stammered, flanked by trembling aides. Where's the rest of your team? The figure's voice came through a built-in vocoder, low and flat, devoid of inflection. Designation: Malix Vorn. Class 0 asset. Protocol 9 initiated. Lead me to your war maps. The term Class 0 was alien to every database the Oshal accessed. There were no known military designations under that class in the Confederation's records, and Earth had long stopped sharing anything of strategic value after the Varnak incident. Confusion spread. Still, with the Virex advancing on 3 sectors and millions of citizens at risk, the Council had no choice but to comply. Malix was escorted to Oshal Prime's war nexus, a floating dome of tactical projections, orbital feeds, and threat simulations. Dozens of analysts watched as he approached the interface. Without asking permission, he accessed the system and absorbed data at an alarming speed. Within seconds, he pointed to a barely noticed fluctuation in the swarm's movement. There, he said. Swarm Node 3 is about to shift. If not intercepted, within 1 hour your planetary shields will fall. The analyst balked. The Virex never shifted this early. They had another 2 days before that node became a real threat. One of them challenged him. That's impossible. The node's behavior hasn't... Malix turned to face him. You're already dead. You just don't know it yet. Then, without waiting for debate, he turned and left the room. The feed switched to live satellite coverage as Malix walked into the wilderness beyond Oshal Prime, toward the swarm zone. Entire cities had fallen in that area. The sky was clouded with bioplague spores. The Virex fed off biomass and metal alike. Not even drones returned from the infected region. Malix walked in alone. The feed trembled with static. Nothing came through for 30 minutes. Then, suddenly, silence. Not on the feed, on the sensors. The Virex presence in that zone disappeared. Every biosignal, every mechanical pulse, gone. Over 1 million Virex annihilated in 30 minutes. The war nexus fell into stunned silence. No one cheered, no one understood. Even their best orbital cannons couldn't have done that. Back in orbit, the human ship's onboard AI sent a transmission to Oshal Command. Initial suppression complete. Class 0 efficiency remains optimal. Recommend non-interference. Continued. Operation at 94% probability of swarm-wide extinction. One of the Oshal analysts leaned forward, pale and shaking. What did they send us? And the AI responded with chilling clarity. He is not a soldier. He is not a man. He is what we made when we ran out of both. The galaxy knew humans as innovators, survivors, and, when cornered, monsters of ingenuity. But even the Oshal had no idea what humanity had truly hidden away. After Malix Vorn annihilated an entire Virex swarm alone, questions ignited across the Dominion. Military brass demanded answers. Scientists scrambled to analyze residual energy signatures from the battlefield. None matched known weapons. There were no signs of orbital strikes, explosives, or radiation. Just eerie sterility. The entire zone had been purged with surgical precision. The Oshal Council confronted the AI aboard the human vessel. A calm, neutral voice greeted them. Query received. You wish to understand the Class 0 protocol. They did. Desperately. The AI complied, offering not tactical briefings, but history. Centuries ago, during a forgotten conflict on Earth, humanity faced an enemy eerily similar to the Virex, adaptive, hive-minded, unstoppable. Entire continents fell. Orbital stations burned. In a final act of desperation, Earth's defense councils approved the unthinkable, the Omega Doctrine. When soldiers are no longer enough and machines cannot adapt in time, the AI explained, you craft something in between. You build a weapon that thinks, that calculates, that evolves mid-battle, but obeys without hesitation. That was how Malix Vorn came to be. A child born during Earth's final siege, he was selected for Project Eidolon, an illegal hybridization program, fusing biomechanical precision with suppressed emotional capacity. His brain was fused with self-modifying nanoware. Pain thresholds were erased, empathy reduced, every part of him sculpted to kill, not from rage, but from ruthless efficiency. He wasn't alone at first. There were 12, but one by one, others either rebelled or lost containment. Only Malik survived, not because he was the strongest, but because he never questioned the mission. When the Virex threat ended, Earth realized what it had unleashed. Malik's was too dangerous to destroy, too unique, so they locked him away, cryogenically suspended deep beneath the Pacific expanse and buried the project under layers of classified protocols. A fail-safe asset, an extinction-level contingency. Now with the Virex's return and the galaxy's indifference to Oshal's plea, Earth had reactivated him. You weren't given aid, the AI continued. You were given a scalpel to carve away your infection. Back on the surface, Malix continued his grim task. He didn't coordinate with Oshal military. He didn't pause for rest or nourishment. He moved from sector to sector like a plague. In reverse, wherever he passed, the Virex ceased to exist. No fire, no explosions, just silence. A science team observing from a hidden drone finally got a close-up visual. Malix embedded his fingers into a Virex node's neural spine and injected something, liquid metal laced with violet light. The node convulsed, released a shrieking pulse heard across 4 continents and collapsed into dust. But what terrified the Oshal most wasn't the node's death. It was the one word the hive screamed before it died: exile. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Somehow the Virex remembered Malix, and they were afraid. At first, the Oshal Dominion hailed Malix as a savior, a shadow stepping out of humanity's dark past to shield them from oblivion. His ruthless efficiency devastated the Virex blight with terrifying speed. Entire hives collapsed in moments. Swarms evaporated without warning. The galaxy's most advanced defenses couldn't compete with the cold precision of this one human weapon. But soon, unease spread through the Dominion's command centers and civilian sectors alike. Malix's methods were different, harsh, unyielding. It began with his assessment of compromised zones. Any region where the Virex had infiltrated deeply wasn't just targeted for purging the swarm. It was eradicated wholesale. Entire cities, ecosystems, even genetic lineages were declared infected sub-threats and marked for termination. Human technology unleashed nanite clouds and viral storms that sterilized life at the cellular level. The Oshal people watched in horror as homes were vaporized, farms turned to ash, and entire populations vanished, not by Virex, but by Malix's cold calculus. The council scrambled to intervene. Emergency meetings convened. They sent envoys and field officers to negotiate, to contain, to plead. Malix ignored them all. When a delegation attempted to disable his command interface, they found themselves isolated, cut off from communications, then quietly disappeared. No violence, no battle. Just gone. Extracted from the equation with chilling finality. A whisper circulated among the surviving generals. He doesn't kill out of malice or anger. He kills because the mission requires it. Mercy is a liability. The humans aboard. The vessel sent a cold update. Operation at 73% effectiveness. Termination parameters remain non-negotiable. Resistances will be eliminated to ensure overall success. Resistance, it seemed, was futile. The turning point came when Malix confronted Oshal General Kael Tarus, the highest-ranking officer who dared challenge his methods. Tarus demanded an explanation. Why do you sacrifice innocent lives? Why not target only the swarm? Malix's response was merciless and clear. You did not ask for peace, you asked for survival. That has a price. Then, without warning, Malix stepped into the general's command bunker alone, locking the door behind him. The council waited anxiously. Minutes passed like hours. When the door opened, General Tarus emerged, silent, pale, and broken. He gave no public explanation for what happened inside. But from that day forward, the Oshal military's resistance melted away. Malix's authority was absolute. Terrified scientists monitored his actions remotely, noting a pattern of increasing severity. Areas once deemed recoverable were now erased. Entire species of wildlife were deemed potential vectors. The line between defense and genocide blurred. Civilians grew restless. Riots sparked in the streets of Oshal Prime and its colonies. They shouted, "We asked for a savior, not an executioner." But there was no one left to hear. Malix was no diplomat, no negotiator. He was a weapon forged to exterminate a threat. And in his logic, collateral damage was acceptable, even necessary. As the Virex swarm retreated before him, the galaxy began to murmur. Had humanity crossed a line they would never return from? Malix was not just fighting a war against the Virex. He was a judgment, a reckoning, and his sentence was absolute. The Oshal had begged for aid and received humanity's darkest truth wrapped in living armor. As Malix's ruthless campaign raged on, the Virex blight retreated deeper into the galaxy's uncharted territories. But something changed. The hive no longer fled in blind panic. Instead, it began to adapt. The Virex were not a mindless swarm. They were a collective intelligence. And now, they faced a weapon unlike any other, a single human entity capable of targeted extermination on a scale that defied comprehension. In the dark reaches beyond known space, the Virex initiated a desperate countermeasure. They began to evolve fast. Where once they had relied on overwhelming numbers and brute force, now they developed stealth, mimicry, and new biochemical weapons designed to target Malix's unique physiology. Hive nodes were equipped with advanced sensors to detect his nanoware and bioengineered parasites that could infect and corrupt the technology fused to his body. Reports filtered back to Oshal Command. Entire squads of Malix's drones and support. Bots were being disabled by previously unknown toxins. For the first time, the unstoppable asset faltered. Malix, however, showed no sign of hesitation. He adapted faster than the swarm. His nanoware reconfigured in real time, repairing damage and creating defensive countermeasures. When infected by biotoxins, his immune system generated targeted antibodies synthesized by onboard biotech, transforming threats into fuel. But with every counterattack, the hive learned more. It was a war of wills and mutations. The galaxy watched in horror as Malix became less human and more machine with every engagement. Meanwhile, whispers began to circulate through the corridors of power. Had Earth knowingly sent a weapon that could become a greater threat than the enemy? The fear wasn't unfounded. Malix's relentless march left entire worlds sterilized, entire species wiped from existence. The ethical lines blurred, and the question loomed, what if Malix decided the galaxy itself was compromised? Back on Oshal Prime, the Council debated drastic action. Some proposed shutting down Malix, claiming he had become too dangerous. Others argued that without him, the Virex would return and finish their genocide. Tensions reached a boiling point when a clandestine strike team attempted to infiltrate the human ship and deactivate Malix's control core. The mission was a disaster. Silenced without a trace, the operatives vanished before sending any transmission. Malix's AI broadcast a chilling message to the Oshal. Operational integrity intact. Unauthorized interference neutralized. Further attempts will be met with termination protocol. The Council realized they were no longer in control. Then the unthinkable happened. Sensors detected a massive Virex formation heading directly toward Oshal Prime. Not a swarm, an entire fleet of hive ships, biomechanical dreadnoughts, each armed with new weapons specifically designed to disable Malix. As the fleet approached, the atmosphere in the command center turned from confident to desperate. Malix stepped forward. "You asked for aid. Now you will see why we were silent." In the battle that followed, Malix faced the Virex fleet alone. The skies above Oshal Prime ignited in an inferno of energy pulses, bioplasma, and kinetic blasts. Malix's armor absorbed and redistributed damage, his nanoware recalibrating under fire. But this was no longer a simple extermination. The Virex fought with cunning, ambush tactics, and overwhelming force. In the heart of the storm, Malix initiated Protocol Omega, a last resort measure Earth had warned only be used if all else failed. The consequences of that activation would ripple through the galaxy forever, because when hunters become the hunted, the prey learns the deadliest lessons, and Malix was ready to teach. The skies above Oshal Prime burned with chaos. Malix, humanity's darkest weapon, stood at the epicenter of a battle that would decide the fate of an entire star system, and perhaps the galaxy itself. With the Virex fleet closing in, their new weapons targeting the very nanoware coursing through Malix's body, he initiated Protocol Omega, Earth's last and most feared contingency, designed not only to eliminate threats, but to reshape the battlefield entirely. From deep within Malix's armor, nanite swarms poured out like a living storm. These microscopic machines spread rapidly across the battlefield, into the atmosphere, across the surface, infiltrating ships, hives, and organic tissue alike. The nanites were not mere weapons, they were evolution in motion. They rewrote DNA and machinery alike, disassembling Virex bioconstructs and turning hive matter into inert dust. The swarm itself was consumed, starved of its hive mind and collapsing, but the price was devastating. The nanites did not discriminate between friend or foe. Oshal cities, civilian populations, and fragile ecosystems were caught in the crossfire of this relentless purge. Entire continents were rendered lifeless, oceans sterilized, and skies darkened by the fallout of the nanite storm. In the command center, horror-stricken leaders watched their worlds burn, not by enemy fire, but by the weapon they had begged for, yet the Virex threat was crushed. For the first time in decades, silence fell across the war-torn system. The swarm was gone, but so too was the Oshal Dominion's innocence. Malix remained silent, standing, alone amid the ruin. The AI aboard the human vessel transmitted one final message. Mission complete. Collateral containment beyond protocol parameters, awaiting new directives. The galaxy was forced to reckon with the terrifying truth. The weapon Earth unleashed was a double-edged sword, designed to save, but capable of annihilation. In the aftermath, the Oshal Council convened to decide humanity's fate, and Malix's, some, demanded he be deactivated, locked away as a threat to all life. Others argued that such power, though terrible, was the only insurance against threats beyond comprehension. A new treaty was forged. Humanity's dark weapon would remain under strict observation, quarantined in deep space, ready only to be reactivated if the galaxy faced extinction once more. But the cost weighed heavily on all. The Oshal people mourned their lost worlds and lost trust. The galaxy whispered fears of humanity's true nature, no longer seen as allies but as a force that wielded judgment itself. And somewhere in the silent void, Malix waited. No longer just a weapon or a soldier, he had become a reminder that sometimes salvation comes wrapped not in mercy, but in ruthless and terrifying power. The galaxy had begged for aid. Humanity answered, with its darkest, creation. And the question lingered in every mind. Was it salvation, or the beginning of a new kind of war?